Good morning.
Good morning.
We're at the International English School in Sigtuna with the new headmaster. And Sandy, would you like to present yourself so everybody knows who you are?
Yes, thank you. My name is Sandy Schäfer, and I am the new principal rector of Internationella Engelska skolan in Sigtuna.
And from what I understand, you have been very successful at attracting students here. How many students are at the school now?
We have started with 512, and we don't start with year 9s in the first year because that's not a year that students would move to a new school. So we're not full capacity yet, but next year when our year 8s move into year 9, then we will be at full capacity, which will be 608 students.
What do you think attracted so many students to the school? I know you have a good reputation.
I think the IES reputation precedes us, which is a wonderful thing because I think it was 2 or 3 weeks after we opened up the queue, there were a lot of people that were interested in the school. We have some schools in the area as well. We have a sister school in Uppsala, IES Uppsala, and in Upplands Väsby. So I think people were already familiar in the area with the IES name and the IES reputation. So I heard that there was much excitement when the local people of Sigtuna heard that a school would open up here.
Yes, and I was expecting great success as well because there are some issues in the schools in Sweden and here as well. I knew this would be popular. And explain the philosophy of the school. What are its points of attraction and why is this popular, do you think?
That's a really interesting question because I think the majority of people think that it's the English that attracts families to IES, and it's not always the English that is the attraction. You know, Barbara, all those years ago in the early 1990s, she was working at a Swedish school, and she felt that there was something missing. And she had the courage to step out of the mold and to start a school based on her personal philosophy, which is one of students are able to learn better in a structured environment where there's a calm environment for them to be able to learn. And she created this school. And this is how all of the IES schools have followed. Excuse me, I've been talking a lot the last few days, the opening ceremony. But the philosophy has been students learn in a calm and structured environment, and teachers teach best in a calm, structured environment with support from their management. And this is the philosophy. So when I think what attracts families to an IES school is that this structured learning environment, I think that's the fundamentals of what makes parents want to send their children to one of our schools.
Well, I've been following the International English School for a long time. Met Barbara. I visited her school at the first school when she started in the south of Stockholm. And I'm convinced that one of the reasons why the concept works is that her philosophy and the philosophy of the school is very clear. The parents know what to expect. The students know what to expect, the staff knows what to expect, and you either buy into the concept or you go somewhere else. And it's been successful because people have wanted that type of more calm and more calmness, and sometimes people like more traditional type of instruction. There are many ways to make students calm. You can by the attractiveness of the lessons and the fun that you have there and the curiosity that awakens. But so there's many ways to get to that. But this school has chosen a path, and that seems to be attractive to many people.
Absolutely. I think something that you said that is really important is our lesson structure, because we can't expect students to be paying attention to something that is absolutely not interesting. So we work a lot with our academic structure on how we structure our lessons and the expectations on teachers to deliver lessons in a certain way. But we prepare them, we coach them, we teach them. These are the expectations. You know, we start that from outside the classroom. All of our students line up quietly outside the classroom. We have a set procedure for how the students enter the classroom, how they are greeted, how they are invited to be seated. And this sets the tone for the lesson. And then we have a strong academic manager in every school that works with us, the teachers. So creating exciting, interesting, dynamic lessons are part and parcel of what we need to do and what is my responsibility to create that calm learning environment for the students.
When I observe lessons today, one of the things that I see is there's not much teaching going on. The students are sitting at their desks, they're filling in their papers, or they have their iPads, and it's basically the same thing with the old, what we call them, the stencils, the worksheets, and the fill in. But I suspect there's more teaching going on. There's more dialogue going on here. Is that correct?
Absolutely. There is a more traditional way of the teacher has a textbook, the student has a workbook, it's all printed, and the teacher says, open up the page to page 63, we're going to read this, and now you're going to fill in these missing words in an already printed workbook. That's not how we work.
No.
We don't believe that stimulates the mind. It doesn't ask for independent thinking or critical thinking. So that is what we work very hard with our teachers, is how they structure a lesson. We don't want them to work in that way, and we don't often or always work with textbooks. Because if you take that book away from a teacher and you ask them now to teach the lesson, they have to think in a much different way to, well, just fill in that we've read that paragraph from. So that is how we work.
Okay.
So you might see laptops in a lesson, but that would be perhaps more a research-based type of project. We do a lot of group work as well, because our belief is that preparing these youngsters for a future is simply, it's not just about their own independent learning. It's about how they collaborate with others. It's about how they can adapt to different group situations and how they might come to an end conclusion with a group with differing opinions. So that is what we work a lot on in our lessons, and definitely not the simple textbook and workbook situation.
Okay, I hope so.
Yes.
I'm very concerned about the quality of teaching. I find that the higher quality of the staff member and the higher quality of the lesson, the more interesting. The motivation becomes less of a problem, and there's more readiness to learn. You've been a part of several startup schools. I want to ask you to think about one that you're particularly proud of, or something that you've done in your work as a principal that project, that school, that really worked out well. I like what I did there, what I contributed. What would be that? The first thing you think about?
10 years ago, Barbara convinced me to open up one of her new schools, because I was a teacher with her, head of maths for many years. So I actually opened IES Hasselby in 2011. And what I learned about opening a school as opposed to being a teacher was mostly about myself, because I only knew myself as a teacher. And what I discovered was I knew that I enjoyed mentoring children, but I didn't really understand the extent and the enjoyment that I would get out of mentoring and developing young teachers.
Okay.
And that kind of became my thing in a way, because just the other day, my assistant principal and I were looking at an old staff photograph from IES Hasselby, and I think it was our second or third year, and we counted, and in that picture are 7 staff members that are now IES principals. And that I didn't know that at the time, that was something that I really enjoyed doing, was finding that talent and that ambition in young teachers and developing them and allowing them to grow and to lead them to become future leaders.
Now I'm going to go into the details a little bit here. I'm going to ask you to think of one of the people that you mentored, no names mentioned, just think of a person. And what did you do right in that? How did you mentor in a way that was effective?
I think it was confidence building. I think I saw something in this person long before they did. And the funny thing is, that's what I think exactly what happened with Barbara and myself. Because she had been trying for years to get me to take on the role of principal. And I didn't have the confidence, and I didn't think I'd be a good principal. I only knew myself as a teacher. But I think there's something quite similar there, that she was seeing something in me that I didn't know existed yet.
So how do you look for it? How do you know there's something here? How do you identify what's special?
That's a very difficult question, because there's something in my gut. It's like when I interview somebody, and it's observing. It's observing, it's seeing how not only the students respond to an individual, but how the colleagues respond to an individual.
So what would be an example of something that you would see? This person that you are thinking of right now, what's particularly did you see in that person that you could identify?
One of the things that made me think that this person would be a good leader was how they incorporated everybody's opinion in meetings. And I know what is required in IES. I know what is required in Swedish schools. And that individual obviously wasn't thinking that, oh, this is a good leadership skill to have. But I was able to see that, and then started to plant seeds as to possibilities in the future. For example, when I had my development talk with this teacher, I praised and commented on the things that I had seen that I really valued, and spoke about, these are the types of skills that good leaders have. And, is there something in you that makes you think about some form of, in the beginning, sort of a very low level of leadership, for example, maybe a head of department. And that's how it happened. And then it was this person becoming a head of department, and then progressing through the different, and this is the beauty of IES, is that we can develop these people because we have all of these roles. So it was first a head of department, then it was a head of year, then it was the academic manager, then he became my assistant principal, and now he's running his own school. Very successful IES school.
Sounds like a lot of more organizations should think in that way. But as I listen to you, what I do in these interviews is I try to listen to some of the key words that you're coming out with. And there's something that you refer to again and again, is that's this visualness. I mean, you observe and you see and you look. You've used these terms very much. So that obviously is one of the keys to your success, is that you are very observant. So now you're starting the school here in Sigtuna, and it's already successful because you've attracted a lot of students. But what are some of the things that you want to observe as you go forward? Well, what are some of the details you're looking for to know whether things are working or not?
I do a lot of walking. I do a lot of
management
observing.
by walking around.
Management by walking and visiting.
Mm.
This is because I cannot sit in this office and know what's going on.
Oh,
I
like that,
have
yeah.
my own, I'm steering the ship, and the beauty of Barbara and IES is I have autonomy to steer the ship in the direction that I would like to take it, based, of course, on our IES principles and ethos.
Right.
But within that, I have autonomy.
Mm.
So I need to see what's going on.
Mm.
So I walk a lot.
What do you look for?
I just want to see what's going on in the classroom as a start.
Mm.
When I see a calm learning environment,
Mm.
I know I can see on the children's faces what is happening in the classroom. And literally all I need is a piece of glass this size next to the classroom door, and I get a good idea of what's going on in the classroom. I talk to students a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I have lunch with the students.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I sit with them. I do break duties. I do lunch duties. I talk to the students. I ask
I'm
them.
laughing a bit because during my, I wasn't principal for as long as you've been, but I used to play basketball with them during the breaks, and I'd always sit with the students during lunch and things like that. You have to.
Find out.
My first principal here,
everything.
I worked as a school psychologist. We called him the janitor principal because he'd walk in the halls and he'd pick up pieces of paper and he'd talk to the students. He knew every student's name, knew everyone's brother or sister, had the whole history of everyone there. And people thought it was strange. He just walks the halls all day long, but he did his job.
That's how you observe.
Right.
You listen. You
What
look.
is, we're going to tie up the interview in a few minutes here. If I speculate, the key word for me in our interview is observation, and be observant and look, okay? So what would you like to observe within yourself as you're going forward? What do you want to be careful about, or what do you want to think about, or how would you like to grow yourself? You've done this before, you're confident you can do it again, but what do you want to be observant of as far as your own behavior or is concerned?
I don't think there's anything new right now, but it's still early days, and I am still exploring the student body, because every school that I have worked at, or especially started, I have a different student body.
Well, that's true, but I'm now asking, that's not my question. The question is, what would you want to observe about yourself, your own behavior, your own self-knowledge?
I think it is just to continue doing what I'm doing. I don't, I'm at the twilight of my career.
Don't say that.
I am. This is my last rodeo. I've told Barbara, this is my last school. This is it. Next step is putting my feet up in Spain. Not now, of course. I still have a massive task to do at the school. But this is my my last school that I will. Well,
so what's things that you want to be careful about? I mean, I want to do this well. What's something you make a decision that?
I think it is taking care of my staff. I mean, I know that is something that I have been told I do well, but I know there's always room for improvement.
Okay, so what would you like to improve on in the way you're taking care of your staff? I know you do it well, but if you're going to turn it up one notch, what is one thing that you'd like to be especially careful with?
Well, to answer that question, I have to go back a step, because when I opened Hasselby 10 years ago, I was very conscious of being a buffer for my staff between all the administrative work that they have to do and them actually being teachers. And in the 10 years since I opened Hasselby, that work has quadrupled, which means there's even more workload now expected on myself as the school leader. It's phenomenal the amount of paperwork and bureaucracy and administrative work that we have to do. So I think I have to step that up even more to be able to provide that creative environment for my staff to be able to be those brilliant teachers in the classroom.
Okay. So what I'm going to say in conclusion and ask you is to be aware of that process within yourself. You know, how can I maintain my creativity despite all the things that I have to do and despite all the administrative work? And you don't have to answer that question, but I'm just, I want to push a little bit back and just say that's important for yourself in order to feel well and to feel that you're growing as a person.
I think you've hit on something there, because I know that balance is required, and I know I don't have that personally. My life is my work,
Right.
and it is all-consuming, and it is 14-hour days, 7 days a week, and I know that is not sustainable.
So think creativity. I'm not going to ask you to answer the question. Think creativity. Think the things that give you joy. Think the things that are non-essential to your work that make you feel well, and that will help you with your balance. Because you have all the other things down.
Yes.
You know what you're doing. You have experience in what you're doing. You're confident in what you're doing. You've showed a lot of successes. But it's important also to maintain your integrity with yourself and your creativity.
That is so very true, and yeah, I will admit I don't quite have that balance yet. I'm convincing myself that it's the startup and this is what is required.
Right.
But I am going to have a serious talk with myself at some point, and say, right, now you are up and running.
Right.
Now you do need to turn the attention inward.
Well, it's being in touch with your creative side. And that helps you feel better, and that puts you in balance, and then other things work out.
Absolutely.
So.
100% correct.